Hey everybody, Bearded Rogue here, catching up on Vlogust after my trip to Dragonflight. And this episode's really going to be about Dragonflight, specifically. I'm going to talk a lot about the convention, and just it in general, as far as things went for me and some realizations I had about conventions and the types of conventions I like, the types of conventions I don't, and various things of that nature. So I'm just going to launch right into it. So, for those who don't know, Dragonflight is a smaller convention. I believe it was less than 1,000 people. It was definitely less than 2,000 people. I don't believe it was over 1,000, but it could have been. That's held in Bellevue, which is a suburb of Seattle. And the venue that it was held in is the same venue that OrcaCon, that I attended earlier this year in January, was held at. So it was kind of cool to be in the same location, and roughly know where things are. Their layout is a little bit different, and the way they do things is a little bit different. I'm not going to spend the whole time comparing the two, but I can start off by saying that one of the biggest things for me about Dragonflight this year is that in an attempt to be extremely organized, they ended up having no casual atmosphere whatsoever. So what I mean by that is they had tables in the main room. However, almost all of those tables were reserved for multiple hours out of every day. There was no opportunity to just find a table, sit down, and play games. You were going to be constantly interrupted, constantly have to move, constantly find a new place, unless you were willing to play on one of the many tables scattered throughout the hotel that were not in the main room. That was a really awkward thing for me. I've seen larger conventions like Gen Con have issues where there are no tables for people to just sit down and play games, but never at a convention that is this small have I ever run into that problem. I've never gone to a convention and not been able to find a table to play games at. Friday at the con, I played a total of 2 games from 9 a.m. until 3 p.m. due to just utter lack of finding any place to sit and play games. That's really sad to me. It was exacerbated by the fact that they actually ran the vendors around the outside of the hall in a U-shape, and closed off both sides of the hall after the vending area was closed for the evening. But in doing so, they also walled off 14 tables for the overnight hour. So even though they gained some tables for free play area because the Playtest Northwest area closed down, they lost 14 tables overall for the rest of the evening, making it even more table-starved. So I don't know if it's a sign of this convention outgrowing its venue, or if it's a sign of them trying to be more regimented. I know there were several people who I talked to who specifically, a month in advance, scheduled games that they wanted to play as events just to make sure that they got tables. So apparently this isn't an entirely new problem. But I think it speaks to the difference to me between what I'm looking for in a local convention versus what I'm looking for in a larger event-type convention. At a local convention, I just want to play games. I want to play games. That's all I want to do. I'm not looking to spend a ton of money. I'm not looking to, check out a whole bunch of vendors. I'm not looking to play in a whole bunch of events. I don't have a problem with events existing, but to me, events should be off in another room. Events should not be filling up the main area of the convention. The main area of the convention should be the open gaming area for the people who came to the convention to game and did not have a specific plan in mind for that. if you have a specific event scheduled, then you can go to a separate room to play the separate event that you had scheduled. You don't need to be in the main room where the people are to find a game. You don't need that area of the con as your area, basically. You know, if you came to play a specific game for a specific time, you know, go play. Like, those should be scheduled in one of the breakout rooms. I shouldn't have to be looking for tables outside of the main hall of a convention at a local convention. I don't like the lack of tables where you can play games at Gen Con or Origins either, but at a local convention, like a small local convention, this was on another level for me. And it really got in the way of my enjoyment of the convention, particularly on Friday. By Sunday, when a lot of people had left or cleared out, it was much easier to find a place to play. And I actually played more games on Sunday of the convention than I did the other 2 days combined. And it is bizarre to me that that is the case. So that's the first thing that I felt like I really just had to get off my chest. Like, if I'm going to a local convention, I am looking for the opportunity to play a bunch of games. Like, I specifically brought games from my unplayed games stash so that I could get them to the table in an area where I could find more willing players than I can in my own living room. That was the plan, anyway. So unfortunately, only 2 of those games were played all weekend long, even though I carried them around with me. It makes me wish I'd left most of the stuff that I brought with me at home, and not even bothered. So that's the big negative. What are the big positives? So let's look at some of the positives of this convention, because there are some. I don't want you to think that I'm completely sour on Dragonflight as a whole. So, Playtest Northwest. Playtest Northwest had, I believe, 4 tables, maybe it was 6 tables, where designers could set up their prototypes, and most of them had 2-hour blocks where they could play their games, or 2-hour blocks each day where they could play their games with people passing by. There was a pretty good crowd. There were very few prototypes that didn't get at least some love, which is really good to see. It has the same kind of energy as an unpub environment where, you know, there's designers sitting there with their prototypes on the table, people come and sit down and play the games, give them feedback, fill out feedback forms, get entered into a raffle, win games, that sort of thing. Like, it's a really cool vibe, and this is the first time that I've really seen Playtest Northwest in action. They've been at previous conventions I've attended, most specifically PDX Age last year, but this is the first time I've really seen them and paid attention to that as a thing. It was really cool. When they had spots open up, they offered those spots to other designers who were at the con in case those people wanted to play test their prototypes. Really, really well run, very well handled. The scheduling was really good. All of the, or at least most of the tables had people actively playing all of the time. Lots of really cool designers playing each other's games, giving feedback. Really, really great environment. Playtest Northwest is doing some really good stuff. Double thumbs up for Playtest Northwest. And all of the amazing designers that I got to meet there because they were there for Playtest Northwest. I got to play several really, really cool prototypes at the con during the convention. It was one of the few places where you could guaranteedly get a seat and get to play a game, was to go play a prototype. So in that regard, Dragonflight's lack of seating really worked in Playtest Northwest's favor. If you wanted to sit down, you could sit down and play a prototype pretty easily. Playing whatever game you wanted, not so much. So that was one thing that I really liked about Dragonflight. The next thing about Dragonflight that I really liked is that they opened at 9 a.m. Friday, and Unlike a lot of other conventions which close at a certain hour, Dragonflight was open 24 hours the whole time. They opened at 9 a.m. Friday, and they did not close until 6 p.m. on Sunday. There were people actively gaming at all hours of the night, straight through the weekend. After a certain hour, it became much easier to find a table. If I were to go again, I would probably sleep during the day and then show up at night and just play all night long. Because it's the only way I could actually play everything that I wanted to play. But that's a very interesting way to run a local convention. I think it's a really good idea to, if you're going to have a convention in a hotel and encourage people to get rooms in the hotel and stay there overnight, you know, much like BGG-Con is run, you know, don't kick everybody out. Sure, you can close things like the Hot Games Room or the Vendors Hall or whatever other areas of that aspect, like Playtest Northwest didn't run all night long. But the convention hall was open all night. It wasn't like, you know, Origins or Gen Con where suddenly at some point everybody turns into a pumpkin and you're not allowed to game there and have to go retire to the hotels in various locations around the city to continue gaming. That was really cool, and I think it's something a local convention can do much easier because they require fewer volunteers to watch the areas and make sure that there's not any shadiness. It's kind of hard to get volunteers who are willing to do overnight shifts, I would imagine. That said, the people in this area in the Pacific Northwest are really freaking awesome. So many cool people, so many friends, new and old, at the convention. It was really cool to get to see people and hang out with them and, you know, just experience that. So, as a whole, Dragonflight was a plus, with some pretty big negatives. I preferred OrcaCon. OrcaCon had some different things that they did that I wasn't as keen on, but for the most part, OrcaCon was much easier to find a place to play. It was much simpler to just get in there and game. There was a playtest area at OrcaCon that offered opportunities for designers to playtest. It was not organized by Playtest Northwest, but it was still very well run. So even though Playtest Northwest is top-notch, and OrcaCon didn't have Playtest Northwest, OrcaCon did a fantastic job of giving designers that space to show off their prototypes and get playtests in. So, you know, OrcaCon also has a very clear code of conduct. Dragonflight, I was very pleased to see, has a very clear code of conduct and has it posted in the entryway of the main hall so that everybody can see it, so that you cannot say that you didn't see it or that you know, you would have to forcefully ignore it. I don't know if it is identical to OrcaCon's. I don't know that it's as inclusive as OrcaCon's is. However, that's OrcaCon's specific mission statement. So it wouldn't surprise me if it wasn't quite as inclusive. But what I read was very good. And that's a great thing to see at a local convention. Zero tolerance policies of harassment, I expect at conventions, and to see it actually posted publicly was a fantastic thing. Do I recommend Dragonflight? I think so. I don't know if it's a convention for me, but I think everybody individually should check it out. They had the Alexandria RPG lending library there, so you could go and play a whole bunch of role-playing games, more out-of-print games than I have seen anywhere in my life in one place. They had a movie theater that was playing movies all night long, and a lot of people would go in there and rest or eat or sleep, which was a really cool way station of sorts to relax. Major plus for that. Overall, it's not a bad convention. It just isn't what I was looking for in a local convention, personally. being able to see everybody that was there that I saw, being able to participate in the Playtest Northwest as a playtester was really, really enjoyable. I love playing other people's games, and there are some really fantastic games from the Pacific Northwest design crews out there. Yeah, Dragonflight. It was a con. It was a pretty good con, with a few things that I would change and do differently if it were up to me. So that's about it. I just, you know, I was there, I was busy doing various con things, and while I expected to record live from the con, that just never materialized as an option. I was always basically running from one spot to another, trying to find a place to play, or trying to find people, specific people that I was going to play with, or trying to get in on specific plays of or plays of specific prototypes that I'd already been interested in from knowing about them through Twitter. The recordings unfortunately did not happen, but this is the first of a few that I'm going to record right now to catch me back up, and thank you guys again for your patience. Sorry this Vlogust has been so crazy. But that's it for this one, so Bearded Rogue out.